Hello everyone, my name is Biggs, and welcome to my aircraft carrier tutorial series. To start, let's talk about ship components. We'll use the Tier 6 Pensacola Heavy Cruiser as an example. All ship types are made up of 4 different components. These components are the superstructure, hull, bow, and stern. While the components are the same on every ship type, some components shrink in size and others become larger. This can either be an advantage or disadvantage, depending on the ship type. This is amplified by the speed and agility of the ship you're captaining. When you have spotted enemy aircraft, you first need to identify what type of armament they are using. HE rocket planes are good for destroyers and light cruisers and can set fires. Torpedo bombers are good for heavy cruisers and battleships and can set floods. HE dive bombers are good for heavy cruisers and battleships and can set fires. AP rocket planes are good for light cruisers and heavy cruisers. They can citadel a ship but cannot set fires or floods. AP bombers are good for light cruisers, heavy cruisers, and battleships. They can citadel a ship but cannot set fires or floods. Here I'm using our trusty USN Pensacola Heavy Cruiser for live demonstration purposes in this tutorial. While it does have additional anti-aircraft capabilities in the form of defensive AA and catapult fighter consumables, I will not be demonstrating them in this video since we are focusing on evading and mitigating attack damage. In this video, we are setting up a scenario where enemy aircraft survive and get through these consumables. When facing enemy aircraft, you should always assume they will get through and deal damage, even if it's minor damage. Enemy aircraft AP bombers have been spotted moving towards us. Dive bombers, regardless of type, want to line up their drop from our bow to stern to land as many bombs as possible. To evade and mitigate damage, we want to hard rudder left or right before, during, and after the bombs are released. Since dive bombers are still nearby, I continue to keep turning to show broadside, making my ship a very difficult target to hit. If the dive bombers were to attack from this angle, they would have a very small chance to hit. In summary, bombs land in a straight line. By showing broadside, we are giving them the smallest area to hit possible. Let's see another example. More dive bombers have been spotted. As they approach, we begin evading. Even when doing everything right, sometimes you will still be hit by a bomb. But it's less damage than what could have happened if we had done nothing. When preparing to evade an air attack, it's a good idea to keep track of your ship's surroundings. In this case, we have 2 islands coming up quickly, which could limit our maneuverability. Since we have dive bombers approaching again, we need to turn hard left or hard right. Here I hard rudder right since going left may have sent me aground. I was struck again but received minimal damage. That's really all there is to it to evading dive bombers. This technique can be reliably used on any ship type. Let's now look at some torpedo bomber footage. Torpedo bombers can be more dangerous due to their ability to cause floods. Like bombs, the more that hit you, the greater the damage and chance to cause a flood. Torpedo bombers drop their torpedoes in a wall pattern, so the best way to evade and mitigate torpedo hits is by getting skinny. Depending on the direction they are attacking, you want to either point your bow or stern directly at them. This allows you to slip between the torpedoes without harm. Since there are still torpedo bombers circling, I turn hard left to point my stern at them in case they attack again. This will ensure I'm keeping my ship profile skinny and difficult to hit from this angle. This is the best way to evade torpedoes entirely. Shortly after the torpedo bomber attack, I spot more dive bombers. Notice there are also more islands nearby than before. Do you still remember how to evade dive bombers in this situation? Was hoping he'd miss, but hey, only one bomb hit me. Let's go back to discussing torpedo bombers. Sometimes, aerial torpedoes are impossible to evade. This time, let's use what we know about components. In the case that a torpedo happens to be unavoidable, we will try to take it in the bow component to start saturating it. As you can see, the bow component is crippled since the torpedo that hit us was very powerful. Remember, crippled components show dark battle scarring. Keep in mind, future torpedoes, shells, rockets, and bombs that hit the bow will inflict reduced damage. Again, we don't want to take a torpedo if we can evade it. Rocket planes are similarly handled to torpedo bomber attacks. Rockets spray in a cone-like fashion, saturating an area. To mitigate rocket attacks, you want to get skinny by pointing your bow or stern directly at the planes. Unfortunately, rocket planes are very hard to evade, but through proper angling, you can greatly reduce the amount of damage you receive. Since rocket planes are still circling, I try to keep my stern pointed at them in case they attack again. But in doing so, I forgot there's an island in my path, which forced me to keep turning. This caused me to show broadside, which resulted in all rockets hitting me. Remember our saturated bow component? Since one of the torpedoes is unavoidable, let's eat it on the bow. I aimed to eat it on the bow, but instead it impacted on the hull. This mistake caused me to take more damage than I intended. Despite this error, I still didn't take full damage because of the ship's torpedo protection system, and because the hull is already damaged. More rocket planes inbound, so I start pointing my bow at them. Keeping my stern pointed at them in case they attack again. That's it for part 1 of my anti-aircraft carrier crash course, covering evading and mitigating aircraft attacks. In Part 2, we will go over how to actively fight back against enemy aircraft. Keep a sharp eye out for Part 2 coming in the near future. Until then, I will see you in the next video.